All right, everybody, we're going to get started. As I mentioned on this opening slide here, again, if you could hang on mute, send your questions throughout the event to the chat box. If we can answer during, we will. Otherwise, we'll get to them in the Q&A portion. I am recording the event, so I will send the link out if you have to drop early or you missed something. All right, so upcoming events. Actually, let me go ahead and I apologize. This is Jessica Wirt from Simplesoft. Most of you guys know me, but for a few of you that are new, I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Simplesoft. So we're going to review just a couple of our upcoming events really quick before we get started. So we have a partnered event with a CSI partner that we work with, Solutions X, coming up in June. We also have a partnered event with Renaissance Tech. We're going to show a demo of the CPQ, the configure price quote tool that works with Infor CRM. And then in July, note this webinar, Why Have a Lead Management Process in CRM, is going to be a follow-up to this webinar to be a more detailed look at the CRM piece to all this. So today's agenda, we're going to have, we have our guest speaker, Swain, who I'll introduce in just a second. He's going to speak first about top performance in sales and linking that with effective CRM use. And then we're going to show you some key points as leaders on how to drive accountability with the CRM. It's going to be some quick examples. And again, we're always here to get with you after to give a deeper dive into how to get that set up for you guys. And then, of course, the Q&A at the end. All right, so our featured speaker is Swain. He is the CEO of Growth Dynamics. And as you can see here, the information on Growth Dynamics, they're a leader in the industry for benchmarking top performance and helping you understand your team better. And they work heavily in the manufacturing and distribution industry, which I know almost, I think all of you on this call are in. So I'm going to pass it over to Ty and let him take it over. Again, send your questions for Ty to the chat box, and we'll try to address them as we go, or we'll get to them after. So let me just pass it to you, Ty.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you great.
Okay. Wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to thank Simplesoft and Jessica Wirt. We've really looked forward to the opportunity to do this and to share some of the things that are going on in the marketplace and how it's changing considerably. So I'm going to go ahead and share it with you right now. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we've been seeing. So as an organization, we work with a lot of sales organizations throughout the industry. And as we all know, there is a mass amount of change occurring, not only in technology and CRM being a critical component of that, but also in how sales organizations are utilizing information, or more importantly, how they're not. And I suspect that with a number of the things that I'll share with you today, some of them will hit home, but I'm going to try and share with you what's going on in the industry, some of the things that are occurring when it comes to Salesforce adoption, or what we call transformation, and helping sales teams move ahead today, which I think is crucially important. Jessica already kind of gave you a feel for who we are. Why it's important to really understand more about who we are is Growth Dynamics works with so many different sales organizations, and so many of them are struggling to not just hire the right salespeople, but they're really struggling to help build the team they've got. So we're going to be talking more about that today. Some of our agenda will be technology advancement and the new normal, the reality of what we call the new normal. And everybody's been using that term, but the reality is it's very real. So much has been impacting customers and sales organizations in the last 2 to 3 months, but we're also going to talk about the complexity of sales and how that's been going on for quite some time. So a lot of these changes that you're seeing just in the last 2 or 3 months really been an evolution that's been immediate, although it has been coming. We're going to talk also about the evolution of the new role of what field sales and inside sales is going to look like. Or the migration of both in many ways in some companies where we're going to have a field sales organization that's more internal than they've ever been before, and then trying to migrate the two so that you actually have a team that fits your needs, your customers, will be crucial in the future. And we're also going to talk a little bit about top performance in sales and how to analyze the role of sales for your company, which I would tell you is crucial when you look at the many changes that are occurring in today's customers how they're buying, what they're doing, and how they're going to market is going to change how our sales organization needs to support their efforts. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some leadership recommendations and the effectiveness of CRM. I can't tell you how important data is. No matter what our sales team tells us, no matter what our customers say, having the right data to be able to reach out and engage customers, to be able to track information is just crucial, just absolutely crucial. So we have a lot of partners that we work with. And when you look at what Simplesoft is doing and how they're going to market in the sense of supporting business with CRM is really crucial, because when we look at all the associations you work with, all of them are pushing hard for technology. They're pushing hard for information. And that information's got to be provided to their members, and those members are then utilizing that to grow and develop their business. So this is a really important component of things today. When we look at the industry and kind of who we work with, you'll see here there's a lot of manufacturers and suppliers. We also have dealers and distributors we work with, but the primary point of this slide is every one of these organizations has a different sales organization. Every one of them operates differently. Even though they are potentially competitors, their sales organizations are unique to themselves. And they're unique for one reason. Their internal structure, the support they provide, the role and responsibilities that they have, every one of the companies is different, and every sales organization is more unique than you would think. So looking carefully at what is the role of your sales organization is going to be really crucial. So what's happening today? Well, we talked about this for the last 5 to 7 years, is the complexity of sales. And sales as a profession has increased considerably in complexity, and a lot of that is because of the onslaught of technology, onslaught of CRM, and the onslaught of resources that are available to customers, such as websites and portals, to be able to buy differently than they have in the past. No longer is it really that important for a salesperson to drop by. And that whole concept, you'll hear me say this a lot, is dropping by, is pretty much over with. And if it's not, it will be fairly soon. Customers in the future are going to require the sales professional or the sales organization have a value or a reason to do a drop by. Otherwise, we're going to be doing things like we're doing now and meeting online and doing business differently. But what that's done is really changed the way customers buy. And today, that means we got to be able to track customers differently, track how they buy and how they're going to sell to assure that your sales organization is successful. The big one that we see today is long-standing sales teams that are really struggling. And this change has been going on for some time. We've been talking about this at conferences for the last 5 years. But there's one thing that hasn't really changed, and that has a lot to do with the technology, and that has to do with the phone. Today, there's nothing stopping a sales organization from getting on the phone and calling existing customers, prospects, and engaging them. And frankly, if they have their cell number, they have their attention. And I think in the circumstances you're seeing today is this technology has been in play for almost 100 years. Is using the phone to have a conversation with the customer without having a face-to-face discussion. We think that this is going to become more and more prevalent and important to the personal relationship that you have with your customers, as well as with the sales team. So unprecedented times. I'm sure everyone who is on this call is probably fed up with hearing COVID-19 and hearing about the challenges and the changes of the pandemic, but the reality is we're here. Not since the Great Depression has one event impacted a human population and businesses and the home as this has. So today, helping your sales organization really look at how they're doing their job and being careful to really help them identify the strengths they bring to the role is going to be really important. And many sales teams today are not prepared to work from a home office and then have no customer visits. And the last one is probably the most important. Not having the opportunity to go in and visit with our customers and engage and have a one-on-one conversation, understand how they're doing, et cetera, is really limiting and frankly creates a lot of loneliness on a person who has been used to being out visiting with customers. So if your sales team falls in that category, that has to in some way be supported. Many sales leaders are also being directed to redevelop and realign the sales organization to actually meet or support the new changing customer environment. And many of them are really struggling to figure out what is right and what type of sales team are we going to need and how am I going to develop that team myself, because the sales leaders in the organizations are struggling to figure it out as well. So we're kind of all in the same boat. Customers, this is a big one. We're already seeing this in the industry where customers are altering their visitation and sales call policies. In other words, they're setting it up so that even if we come out of the pandemic, they're going to have new visitation policies for the sales force that don't just include a mask. They may include that you have to have a reason and a value for being here. Otherwise, we can have the meeting online, we can have the meeting via Zoom, we can use technology to communicate or do things versus portal websites or email. So we're going to see a shift. And I think it's crucial that when you're thinking and talking to some of your customers is to ask them how they see these things changing in the next 6 months and what they're doing to actually make the sales opportunity for a customer and your sales force to get together and what changes they're seeing. This last one is a really big one, which is trade show and industry events that have been eliminated in a lot of industries, including many of the people that are probably on this phone call or on this event. There's so many of these events that have either been eliminated or now are going virtual. When you think about this from a salesperson's perspective, it's the #1 way they're able to engage existing customers, work with distributors or work with dealers, or work with other organizations that are part of the association to network, create leads, and create new prospects. So this one change on top of the many others has been a big one as well for the sales force team. So why are sales teams struggling? We talked about this with the both home and no visits, but we also talked about the leadership is struggling also to set accountabilities. I know many of you identified the importance of identifying accountabilities for the sales force that fit. And I will tell you, just giving this one piece, a very important part of the presentation is setting accountabilities has to be about setting the performance standards and what they're supposed to be doing in their job, where they should be spending their time and how much of their time should be spent on, whether that be prospecting and developing new customers, working with existing customers, or trying to develop new business within existing accounts. A lot of that has to do with having the right data and the right information to be able to track customers' performance, as well as be able to set accountabilities for your sales team. So we see this as a big issue with today's sales leadership is trying to figure out what is their role and what is their responsibilities. We also, as you see, we also are looking at, they're looking for direction and accountability, but they need tools like CRM and other technology to help them target prospects, stay on track, and establish metrics for performance. More of the companies today right now are spending most of their time setting accountabilities that have to do with targeted calls, a certain number of reach outs to existing or past customers, outreach to brand new prospects, and how much of that is done during the week, and trying to set the accountabilities or what we would consider to be the tasks in their week to more action related items versus just revenue alone. And then trying to incentivize those types of activities so you have accountabilities that can be aligned with things that are actually going to bring business or create opportunities for the sales force. The other reality is we talked to a lot of sales leadership that before this crisis hit, we're really struggling with a number of people on the team that really potentially were unable to do the job as the job was at the time. Some of those sales organizations have changed considerably over the last 3 months, and some of the salespeople that were struggling, all of a sudden working internally, are doing much better. And some of the salespeople that are external and having a hard time because they've been in the job, say, a long time, maybe are struggling with habits that they've had for some time and not being able to break those habits, are really struggling to do the job. A lot of this is going to probably push some people out of the role and bring new people into the role, which we believe is just as crucial to understand what is top performance in the role, what does it look like, and what do I expect our sales team to be doing? So whether or not you're trying to coach and develop your existing team to help grow and evolve their efforts, or hiring someone new, you have to have that well defined so that those people who are coming on board will actually get involved in the job more actively and be more successful. So a lot of the leadership questions that we see come from these events are such as, how should our sales team be structured now and in the future? You know, and where is inside sales going? And I'm going to touch on that in just a minute. What is the new role of sales? This is a big one. And then sales leaders and managers, what do they need to change about how they lead, coach, develop, and train the sales team? And what are they going to have to do to shift for success? when we touch on this one, and I touched on this earlier, it's really important to understand that if we ask a sales team to be doing their job differently, I as a manager or as the leadership team need to know how to coach them and lead them differently if I expect them to perform differently. And I'll say that again, how a sales team is actually required to go to market and what they're going to have to do differently in their job. Our sales managers and the sales leaders in the field need to be armed to do that as well. And again, not just CRM, but we're talking about coaching and understanding the strengths and the capabilities of the team members and be able to focus in on the gaps that they bring to the job. And as a manager, helping them to eliminate obstacles or put things in place that help them be successful is going to be crucial for the next year, absolutely crucial. And then setting compensation and establishing new metrics. This one comes up probably more times than we'd like, where the compensation model that was put in place initially doesn't fit the role today. And if you think about, if I'm a sales professional, I'm spending a good 50 to 70% of my time working from a home office, using technology for outreach to my customers, versus it used to be 70% of my time was in the field traveling and visiting with customers. The role that they're doing now, whether it be temporary or long-standing, has changed. So that means the compensation for what they're doing or the incentives for me to incentivize their performance has shifted and changed as well. So this is an important component to be thinking about in your organization, is how is the compensation aligned with the role of sales? So we do a lot of research with our partners and the associations we work with, and one of the big ones that comes up is, can you define why your sales team is successful? And it's interesting how many of these organizations are measuring the skills and the behaviors of top performance, but they really don't know why their sales organization is successful. And actually, in fact, out of the hundreds that we did this with, 74% were really unsure as to why the sales force is effective at what they do, and what are they doing in the role to be effective and be successful. And 26% seem to have a strong understanding of that. That's a really, really high number of unknowns. And we would ask that as you're looking at this, is really to ask yourself, when you look at your top performers, you look at the people that are really working hard, are they doing certain things that make them effective and successful in the eyes of their customer and the eyes of the sales organization? And you'll find that there are trends in what they're doing daily, how they're using technology, how they're using CRM, how they're using LinkedIn, or more importantly, how they're using the phone just to reach out and engage customers and stay active during this time. So in 2015 to 2020, we've been doing a study, and we've been watching to see about the complexity of how suppliers and distributor sales organizations align. And what was interesting in 2015, you noticed that for distributors, the complexity seemingly was a bit higher than it was for suppliers. And as 2016 and 17 came to be, you started to notice in 2018, the complexity for both sales organizations increased. And this was with the really strong onset of technology. We saw in 2017 and 18, a lot of customers starting to buy differently, buying via the web versus buying directly through a sales professional, buying online. All these things were starting to really maximize. And as you see, as 2019 and 20 hit, the complexity of selling, the complexity of the role of sales increased exponentially for both. Some of the primary leadership challenges we also measure for, and we ask a lot of information around this, is because we want to understand more about what leaders are struggling with as they see their sales organizations. So from 2017 and 19, you see the 4 or 5 different topics, but you see the ones that are crucially important that have increased exponentially, and that's the right sales team. Having the right sales organization that fits our customers and fits the job and fits our business has been a big, big shift. And we work a lot in that marketplace, and we can tell you that this has been more and more difficult to find the right people who perform effectively and work within the sales organization. The other one is the long-standing sales team. I touched on this before, but these are people that have potentially been in sales for more than, say, 10, 12 years. Maybe they've been with the organization for a long time, and they've been doing the job the same way for a long time. Making maybe basic alterations and shifts, but in the overall big picture, still doing the job the same way. These people today are really struggling because the technology, CRM, LinkedIn, portals online and how people are using technology is not how they grew up, but they're trying to learn it. And I think that this is a focal point. If you have a sales team that's long-standing, is we really need to help them and arm them with some of these tools to help them track sales, track customers, and track business. The other component is, I apologize, was recruiting the right talent. That has increased considerably as well. It's gotten harder and harder to attract the right people because candidates today are using the technology today more effectively than they used to also filter out the type of jobs they're interested in, what type of roles and opportunities they're looking for. So for us in that recruiting space has gotten to be more and more complex. One of the things we also do is we measure sales team focus. We measure where the sales organization spends their time and how that organization spends their time, because we're always kind of curious as to how it's going to work in the sense of their role. And what you find is that more and more the sales organization itself is proactively less focused and seeking direction, more reactive as we would consider it, and unfocused on what their role is. And it shows here for the 2020 survey that we did is about 60% are unfocused. In other words, they're doing the job without a particular target, without particular direction, without particular accountabilities. And we're starting to see that performance come out in sales. And then you see other people who are in the green there, where they're spending a lot more of their time, and they're really struggling with the direction of what they need to do in their role, and not exactly sure what to do in their role. But then you have another 26% that's proactively focused, and those numbers are not high enough. So I will throw this out: CRM and technology and data and information can really improve upon those things, because it gives me the information I need to get a direction, to feel like I'm doing something that's productive and trackable, so I can see some of my actual effectiveness in what I'm doing, and see that when I make calls that they're having an impact, see that when we do certain things, it's actually providing business or opportunities. So one of the things that's really going on today is what we call traditional sales, and the go-to-market strategy of going digital is here. Traditional sales, as we all know it, has been the sales professional that goes and visits with existing customers and has on-site visits and has the opportunity in which to have that personal rapport and that engagement on site. Even traditional selling has to do with utilizing the phone to enhance those relationships and enhance those on-site visits with follow-up and using technology. Today, what's really shifting, though, exponentially, is where the field sales organization is going to become more of an organization about solutions and about solving problems and being on site to provide a value proposition to the customer. Whereas inside sales, as we consider it, not the traditional inside sales, but inside sales who is a salesperson, but they're inside working with my customers, working with existing customers, even upselling, even prospecting new business opportunities within my territory. So as I'm traveling and working with other customers, I may get a lead or an opportunity that my inside sales professional had the opportunity which to evolve. If you think about it, an inside sales professional, if I was inside all the time, I could spend 5, 6, 7 more times, by time-wise, more time than any of the field salespeople making calls, making introductions, and introducing our company to new prospects or new customers or distributors or dealers or otherwise. Today, with the digital technology that's accessible, your sales organization is going to change, and looking at how the field sales can do their job and how inside sales can be an advantage is a big factor today. So one of the things that we see as a fact going on today, normally when we do sales team analysis, which we do on a consistent basis throughout the industry, is we see one thing that stands out, and it's generally never about the lack of sales skill or the lack of motivation or the lack of drive that a sales team has. It's predominantly, it's one thing that enables their success, and it's focus. It's having a sales team that knows what they are supposed to be doing, is held accountable to what they're supposed to be doing, and is given direction and accountabilities and activities through leadership and through the organization that tells them where their time is supposed to be spent, and then gives them deliverable requirements that align their actual sales performance and their time together. The biggest challenge we run into is most sales organizations struggle with the focus to do their job. And today, more than ever, with the onset of what's occurred in the last 2 to 3 months, I believe that the sales leadership of the organization really needs to step in and help the sales team see where their time needs to be spent based on their territory and what they're trying to accomplish with their role. So in final, a couple leadership recommendations as we start to close. I want to tell you that you today have your sales organization's attention more than you have ever had it before. We talk to a lot of sales professionals in the field. They call because we've been working with them for over 20 years, and they're trying to figure out new ways to use technology, CRM, and different aspects of the industry. They're trying to figure out, how do I shape my role and what do I do? But you have their attention. And while you have their attention, it's important that they realize that the virtual world of selling is here. Dropping by a customer and not using technology is no longer going to be an option. CRM is more crucial than it's ever been before. Technology, LinkedIn, being able to connect with people in an event such as this, being able to introduce yourself via video and send that off to your customer so a sales organization or sales professional can introduce themselves to the customer and match a name with a face via video is powerful. And some of these tools were never around. You look back 20 years ago, none of this was available. We have more opportunities in which to touch customers than we ever have. We just have to have a unique value proposition to get their time. This is probably the one that is harder to do, but you got to get your sales team to become essential to your customers. And one of the most important ways of doing that is by getting them to ask questions, getting them to be present, getting your customers on the phone, getting your sales team to reach out to all your existing customers, but also asking existing customers for referrals. Many sales teams don't do that. Getting your sales team to reach out and make a request on LinkedIn, to have a short conversation, to make an introduction, not make a cold call, but make an actual introduction on LinkedIn and then ask, could I take 5 minutes of your time? You've got to get the sales team to become essential, not only to your existing customers, but to their market space. The other piece of this is getting your sales team together to collaborate on ways to drive new business. Your sales organization has more information and more answers than they'll share with you. They have a lot of ideas, but more importantly, you have people that do the job in certain ways that really works well. Some of the people on your team might be highly effective at new business development, at prospecting over the phone, at engaging customers using technology. And some of them might be exceptionally good at doing data tracking, using CRM to track results, being able to share information that they can use to actually do their job. Getting those people to share what they know as part of your sales meetings while you have this time and while you have their attention is absolutely critical. And then last is making sure your sales team with technology is trained and supported to use the tools we give them. So many organizations today that we talk to, it doesn't matter what the CRM is or what the technology is, they'll say, you should be on LinkedIn. And that's about as far as it goes. You should be on LinkedIn. And naturally, the salesperson is not going to sit back and go, well, what do I do on LinkedIn? Because you didn't ask the question, do you understand how to use LinkedIn? And their answer about 70% of the time will be no. I use it for data tracking and information. Well, CRM is the same thing. It's a resource and a tool. And whether that's accessible to them is very, very important today when it comes to technology. But also, having the awareness of how to use that technology and where they should be putting that in their job and how they should be using that in their job is also crucial. And I know we'll be touching on that today. So some of the things that we are seeing that top leadership organizations are doing is they're redefining the role of top performance in sales. And they're starting to find that there potentially are multiple types of sales roles in a company versus there only being one. One, as we talked about, was inside sales, but we also talked about the reshaping of what a field sales professional's role is. We're also starting to see companies reshaping customer service and inside sales support to where their role is more about collecting valuable information than just taking orders. So much of this is being reshaped, and what we recommend is when you're looking at your business, don't look at your sales force and ask, what do I need them to do? You should be looking at your business and saying, what does our customer need from us? And what does that look like from a sales organization's perspective? Barring what you have in the sales team, because you might find that there are certain people on that team that are definitely keepers that you really need to have for the future. And they're really important to stay focused on and supporting them. The other piece is sales team analysis. We see a lot of value in analyzing your sales team to understand their skills and their strengths and their capabilities. But why you do this is so that you can figure out why are they really good at certain things that they do, and then where do I need to help them in the aspect of what their role is about. So if they really struggle with technology, but they're great at engaging customers, then I need to help them get over that. I need to eliminate the technology obstacle and get them education and knowledge and accountability to start using that technology, because once they do, they'll be on their way. But team analysis is a crucial component of this. Couple last ones is utilizing your top performers as trainers. So few companies do this when some of the people that are on your team are just phenomenal at what they do, and they don't actively share how or why they do their job. I will tell you it's a very valuable thing to do, because when they share their best sales methods or how they go about doing their job, not only are they educating those people, but it's reinforcing for that salesperson why they're effective and what they're successful at. And it's just a really big compliment. And then working with suppliers and your customers to re-engage, build rapport, and connect. Getting your sales team to make sure that on a weekly basis they're reaching out to their existing customers and just connecting with them. How's this week going? What's going on? Anything major changed? What can I do to help you? And really having the empathy to realize that the customer is going through many of the challenges that we are, and they're struggling as well. So being there is really crucial. And then engaging key customers to understand more about what they're looking for in the future. This, I will tell you, is really big. They're making decisions right now that are going to have impact in your sales force in the next 6 to 12 months. Knowing what those are allow you as a leadership team to be well suited to understand what we're going to need to do, what we're going to have to change, and what obstacles we're going to face as we go forward. Some final thoughts. Today, more than ever in sales, you have to have customer data, no matter what you do. And it's not about just what's been shipped and what's been sold, but it's about having active customer data. Because if you think about this one thing, if some of my customers are working from their home office and we don't have their cell number because we never got it before, that's pretty limiting. Today, having a cell number, a mobile number to be able to reach a customer is absolutely crucial. So knowing that that information is available, but there's so much more information that's available in tracking the products that they're buying, the kind of orders that have been coming through, and being able to see some of the things that are out there without being there to see it. And that's where today's sales teams will become more and more blind, as if they're not on site and not aware of what's actually being purchased and what's occurring. CRM can bridge that gap. So the last piece of this is, I would tell you, and I brought this up before, probably the most valued skill most salespeople have is the ability to communicate. And it identifies here in this slide that phone skills today are really important. But some salespeople will look at this as being, well, I always make phone calls. Well, today, the goal of using the phone has shifted. And I will tell you, it has shifted dramatically in the last 60 to 90 days. If I don't have a strong message, if I don't have a good ability in which to introduce our company, I don't have a good ability to present that verbally, to leave a voicemail as an introduction that also complements what I've asked for on LinkedIn to make a connection, I'll run into problems in the sense of being able to get a return call. And if I'm not using the phone properly as kind of part of the process of how I'm reaching out to new customers or existing customers, I can limit myself there as well. So it's really important that you look not only at the technology that you've got, but also the access to some of the skills they need in web technology, e-blasts, email, and phone to be able to do their job. And then last, as a leader, I will tell you that probably the most primary component of helping a sales team is eliminating the obstacles to their performance. So many sales professionals struggle in a role and they focus so much time on areas that are really not their responsibility, and they get caught up in those pieces and parts. And today, more than ever, if you can eliminate those obstacles and build a top performance standard that helps them identify how they should be doing their job and give them the tools to do the job, then you can hold them accountable for being successful in the job. At this point in time, I want to say thank you for having us as part of this event. And more importantly, if can answer any questions. We're going to stay on and listen. And thank you again for the time.
Thank you, Ty. Everyone, if you have questions, feel free to send them to the chat box. We'll get to them. I'm going to switch over. And also, I highly recommend reaching out to Ty and his team. They're very effective at what they do in helping companies and customers, just like I know a lot of you are. So I'll be sending out his contact information in the follow-up email as well as it with this recording. So I'm going to jump over and go through a quick slide, and then we'll take a look in the CRM. So we wanted to talk about some best practices for user adoption and accountability with the CRM, as Ty mentioned, using technology to do that. And as most of you know, that's something we recommend to the leadership all the time. So the first 2 points, as Ty touched on this as well, is you're the leader, so you have to lead by example. Most issues, and I put that in quotes, right, with the CRM are usually not the software, it's usually leadership related. And by that we mean a lot of times the sales leadership is not in the CRM themselves. So they're left to hear the complaints and things from the sales team, but they don't know the product themselves enough to validate if it's correct. And so another point we want to touch on is having clear, defined expectations for your sales team. When you have those clear expectations built into the CRM and a sales process, that's going to help them understand what they're supposed to even be doing in there. Because if you just give them a login and say, here, put all your contacts in the CRM, they're not going to know how to effectively use all the pieces of the CRM that can make their job so much easier. Then again, having the readily available trainings, we recommend even using our YouTube channel and linking it within your dashboards. I'll show you that in a second, so that your team can easily hop to how-to videos and best practice and quick tips for their CRM. And then another big piece is building a process that creates CRM dependency to complete it, right? So some of our customers that are the most successful at CRM adoption, their sales team cannot get paid their commissions unless their stuff is put through a CRM process. They made an opportunity, they tracked the quote, they noted why they won or lost it, right? All the way through to a sales order. That's the best way you're going to get them to use it, is really creating a dependency on the CRM. And then also using it across departments, right? So the more people you get engaged, the more valuable the data becomes. So, sales will complain that their leads are no good, but marketing doesn't know why, right? Or marketing will say they don't get enough information from sales to make better qualified leads for them. So if everyone's in there using it and putting the notes in and converting leads out of the CRM and making notes for marketing to review, it helps everybody in the end. And I'm going to flip over to the CRM, and I'm also going to let everyone know that we do have Don Menisci, who is our president and managing consultant, on the line as well. And so obviously, Don, feel free to jump in at any time with anything you'd like to add to the conversation.
I will. Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can.
Okay, good.
All right, so I'm just going to briefly show everyone a lot of the comments you guys wanted to see were how to get the information out of the CRM. So you know they're putting it in there, but how do you find it and use it? So the big thing in leading by example that we recommend is using your welcome screen dashboards to run your sales meeting, so that your sales team sees you using it and that you're actively engaged in the CRM. So in your dashboards, you can have all the different tabs for the different items that you want to review. So for instance, the activities tab is a great one, because again, putting the accountabilities on the sales team, say they have to complete so many phone calls a week, so many meetings set per week. And you can see here, here's pending phone calls by salesperson, and then here's what was completed. You can select the time frame you want to see it in. You can do it by territory, by salesperson. So these are just some examples. You can see, which territory is completing the most. You can do it by type of activity. And again, remembering that these are all driven by groups in your CRM. You can always click the view group here and it will jump you directly to the group if you want to take a deeper dive into the data. And then another one we see is the My Dashboard. So this here is where you can set this up at the administrative level, and then each person that logs in sees these. So you can put important links that you want them. For instance, you can link to the Simplesoft YouTube right here. They can do quick actions from their dashboard. You can view pipeline. So in the next 30 days, what open opportunities are expected to close, sort it by state, again by rep, and I'll show you that here in the opportunity forecast tab. You can do, open quotes, closed quotes, see how many are out there. All right, let me refresh my page here. It's not loading. There we go. So in the sales, you can see, forecasts that are open. And again, you're looking at the latest, the .4 update. No, I'm sorry, .3 update here. So that's why it looks a little different with the darker blue for those of you who have not seen it yet. And the latest does include the forecasting and quotas. So that's where some of this forecast pipeline is coming from. So then the other item we talked about is, different departments getting in here. You can have a service tab to show open tickets. You can have a marketing tab that shows, open campaigns or leads generated by lead source to review that. You can have a leads tab to keep track of, how many untouched leads there are versus all the leads. You can see them by account manager.
Jessica, I think that's an important one because where I hear a lot of complaints from customers is when, and this goes back to the roles and responsibilities when you talk about in the leadership, that making sure to communicate that the expectation of who's responsible for qualifying leads. One of the biggest complaints from customers is that they spend all this time and energy to gather leads, distribute them to the sales reps, and then people don't call. So creating a dashboard, creating a method to measure salespeople following up on those leads, qualifying those leads, converting them to accounts and contacts, and hopefully opportunities is important. So a simple dashboard is untouched leads, and that can be based on any activities or communications on that lead in a certain amount of time. It could be, say, 2 weeks. That's a great dashboard to put together. And again, making sure that from a management perspective, communicating to the individual reps that as a manager, you're going to be viewing that data.
Absolutely. And then, so Don, here's a question that just came in. Which metrics have you found are best to track gauge for best sales success other than the dollars?
Well, I can, it's a pretty broad question, but I'll answer it the best that I can. I find that persistence is very important in being successful, and that making sure that this goes back to some of the things that Ty was saying, re-engaging with customers. I think that making sure that you maintain the relationship, not always, it depends on the salesperson's role, whether they're a hunter or a gatherer. But either way, everybody should engage on a regular basis. And one of the easy things to do for a salesperson is to break their list of customers. Just say a rep has 50 customers. Maybe 10 of them, 20% are their top customers. And you can, with the subtype, you can define the top customers, and you should establish a certain cadence for communication and follow-up with those customers. So defining the top 10, for example, or the top 20, whatever it is, and then setting a follow-up schedule for them. Maybe it's once a month there should be a communication. And then for all the others, maybe it's only once a quarter or once every 6 months. But you can define those communication parameters and then actually have a list, you can do one of two things: either schedule the follow-up phone calls so they appear on the salesperson's calendar, or you can just have a group that says, my top 10 that have not been touched in X number of days. And then it's always going to be there as a reminder for the sales rep. So a lot of times using these dashboards, it's not about the typical salesperson fear that they're being watched, but it's using it as a tool so that the salesperson can follow up and be more successful at selling. So to answer that question, and it was a long answer, persistence and having a way to make sure that you're following up in those communications. I think that's more important than anything.
Mm-hmm. Agree. And having your team utilize the activities to schedule those follow-ups so that they remember in 3 months to call, Bob back, because that's when he asked for the call. And so when they use the tool to help remind them and do automatic actions, it makes them more successful as well, because they won't drop the ball when they get busy. And Todd, go ahead. Go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say that there are default settings so that every time you can set it up to automatically schedule a follow-up call when you complete a call or send an email or a meeting. So those are just some of the settings in the administrative options for the users to ensure that they always schedule that follow-up call. My opinion is there should always be an open activity scheduled for every customer, whether that's the outside sales rep, an inside sales rep, customer service. There should always be a scheduled activity to touch that customer in the future.
Hey, Jessica, do you mind if I share something?
Sure, go for it, Ty.
So when we've dealt with this, with so many of the sales organizations from the onset of CRM, which has become so much, as you're seeing here with this dashboard, so much easier to use. If you look back 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, even with programs like Salesforce.com and others that are much, not only just so much more expensive and sometimes overkill, some of the programs are simply not being used. And some of the salespeople simply don't want to be tracked. So part of the sell to a sales organization is getting them involved and showing them how this actual technology can help them do their job more effectively, even be able to do their job in less time. So you turn to that person who likes to be out the door at 5 or 6 and say, you can be out the door at 4 to 5. You get up in the morning and use this technology to remind you. And when you're on the phone, he was saying, set an action or an activity so that you don't have to remember to get back to Joe next Friday. It reminds you, and being able to track what they're doing and how they're doing it is so important. But I think sharing with the sales team the advantages of how to use it versus holding them accountable initially to use it is so important. I mean, it really is important. So I just wanted to share that because it's sometimes a real big missing gap where companies will go out and develop the CRM and then turn to the sales team and say, hey, by the way, we have this new tool for you. And their first response is, oh, geez, another thing to learn. So using it as a resource, as an asset, I think it's just crucial. And some of this is just, I think, phenomenal. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, thanks. No, thanks, Ty. I mean, that's a great point. Go ahead, Don.
Ty, I agree completely. And I would also say that it's very important to communicate exactly what you expect the salespeople, what data you expect them to enter into the CRM. And it doesn't need to be a tremendous amount because you've got different roles, right? You've got marketing has their role, inside sales has their role, customer service, and outside sales. But back to outside sales, a lot of times what's important for them to update is really just the opportunity. So if you don't have a sales process, or if you do have a sales process, the key things are to update the probability and the estimated close date. You're not asking them to do a lot. On a regular basis, say they need to do that in order to keep their forecast up to date. Setting the expectation for what data you want the salespeople to update in the web client versus the mobile client, another example. On the mobile, when they're on the road, maybe all you really want them to do is put their notes in. Then be clear and say, all I expect you to do when you're on the road is put your notes in, complete your phone calls, complete your meetings, get those notes in, right? So just being clear about the expectation takes away some of the things that Ty mentioned, which is the fear that, putting data into CRM is going to take a lot of time, or just not knowing what they're supposed to put in, also prevents people from using software. So I think those are another few important points.
I would agree with you, Dom. I think on that too is turning to the sales team and saying the information you're getting for us is also going to help marketing to do a better job at lead generation and some of the types of things we're trying to do with technology to e-blast out to current customers and current contacts. And if they can read the notes and information about where their activity and what they're trying to accomplish is, they can do targeted events and targeted marketing initiatives that help the sales force in the field as well.
Yeah, and that's why having that data, back to your comments about data, if you don't have the meetings and phone calls in CRM, there's no way that marketing's going to know who have we been active with and who have we not been active with. How do I decide what list to create for a drip marketing campaign to re-engage with older customers, right? So there's a dependency there, and that comes down to the whole purpose for CRM, which is collaboration is a big reason. And having the data in there allows the marketing team and the sales team to collaborate to be more successful.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have questions they want to start throwing out there now, or anything I can show you that you're curious of how to get out of the CRM? So I'm just going to start by talking about, when we talked about putting a process in there, to help create accountability and user adoption, is utilizing the leads entity. We find a lot of customers are just jumping straight to opportunities. So they're managing all their pre-qualifications and all their work outside of the CRM. And then when it's time, they create the opportunity and work it from there. So we've been helping several customers build a sales process for when a new lead gets entered, and entering it from the very, very beginning when it's cold, and having a process to work it through different statuses of where the lead is, right? Are they working the lead? Have they disqualified the lead? Or was it actually converted over to an opportunity? And we can create it where when you convert the lead, it doesn't leave the leads entity, it stays there and goes over as an account, so that you can see your conversion rates, you can see which ones were lost and which ones became opportunities a lot faster. And it gives you a complete view of the sales process versus just starting in the opportunities. Brad, you're asking a question here. How do you create a metric on the dashboard? Sure, I can show you guys that really quick. So keep in mind that you have to build the groups first. So for instance, I will just pull up one that's already built and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so let's look at this one. So customers by account manager. So when I click, so what you would do is you'd right click on the tab and it would let you add content. And that's where you select if you want a pie chart, bar chart, right? And you'd go here, and this is where you can select the entity, right? That the group has to already be built in this entity for you to select it. So when you select account, it populates all your groups you have made under accounts. So however that group is set up and whatever's pulled into that group is what you're going to be able to pull the metrics on over in the dashboard. And I'm happy to go into more detail on this with you and walk you through it. And I also have videos with step-by-step directions on our YouTube channel as well that I can send out to everybody. Is there anything about a lead process? Maybe anyone that's not using a current lead process? Do you have any questions on how that could look or should look?
Jessica, this is Swain. I was curious because we've looked this over before and we're really impressed, I think, with, and I say this in a really good way, the simplicity of the program. It doesn't seem to be like overwhelming, but for me to track leads from, as you show here in the staging of that, how easy is it for me to move a prospect from stage 1 to stage 2, 3, and 4?
Yep. So when you go to leads and you open in the detail view, the salesperson has everything here to create notes. So you have your details tab and you have your status drop down. Now again, these are pick lists, so you can put your own staged approach names here. If you want to stage 1, if you want to use the hot, cold, warm, whatever you want to use here, these can be customized to your company's process. And it has the notes and histories function just like the account side. So you can use X bar to record all your emails in, and you can hit the plus sign and add your notes in just like on the other side. You can schedule your activities right from here, so follow-up phone calls, meetings, and then when it is ready, so let's see, you know, Samantha is ready for an actual quote. You just convert her with this button here. You check for your duplicate accounts, and then you hit convert, and it will move Samantha out of leads over to the account side. And what's nice, actually something I was going to show, is you can actually click right here to create an opportunity as soon as you convert it. So then what it'll do is the sales team can convert, and they're already starting their opportunity on the other side. So that makes it faster for them as well. And then remembering when they're on the road, the outside sales team, you can't convert leads on your phone, but you can do all the notes, you can record your activities, and then once it is an opportunity, you can access all these opportunities on your mobile as well on the road and add the notes.
That's pretty nice. Thank you.
I want to also mention, Jessica, that in the Entity Manager, you can create customers can create custom metrics for the dashboard also.
Nice. What are some examples that people are creating?
Oh, like let me just give you an example. So under the opportunity entity, the default metrics include account of opportunities, number of days in pipeline for closed won, number of days in pipeline for open, a sum of sales potential, sum of weighted potential, total actual dollar amount. So these are, there's different aggregation formulas. So there's sum, there's total, there's max, there's min, there's average, a bunch of formulas. And you can apply those to any field that's in the CRM, or even custom fields that you may create your own or yourself. So those custom metrics can be created for leads, for opportunities, for quotes, you know, really any of the entities. You can create a custom metric and then use that on the dashboard, including if a customer has CRM integrated with ERP, you know, an Infor ERP using Ion as an example, you can create metrics for even the data that comes over from the ERP system.
Mm-hmm. So, does anyone else have any other questions or items they'd like to see? Again, this is recorded and I'll send it out with our follow-up information, and as well as Ty and his team in case you want to talk more with them. That will be in there as well. And Ty, I thank you guys very much for taking your time to join us and give your insights on the call. And everyone, I appreciate your time. I know everyone's busy, so I appreciate everyone taking the time to be on.
Thanks, Jessica.
I want to thank Ty. Thank you, Ty. I want to thank you as well. And Jessica, we probably want to make it a point of mentioning that we're going to have more of these webinars specifically geared towards management's use of CRM, including in the future how to actually do some of these things we mentioned on the call today, just so everyone's aware.
Yes, absolutely. So save the date for the July 10th is the next one we have scheduled for that focus. Save the date on that. All right. No one has any other questions. I will let everyone have a few minutes back in their day. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.